Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Grim and Guilty. Hilda Marcela Cabrales was 26 years old. She was an architect and interior designer who had moved to Los Angeles from Mexico. Christy Giles was 24, a fashion model originally from Alabama who also studied interior design. The two were close friends, creative, social, and building lives in LA. In the early morning hours of November 13, 2021, their night started off casually. Christy and Hilda went to an art exhibit at Soho House in West Hollywood, then later headed to a warehouse party in East Los Angeles to see one of their favorite DJs. While they were there, they met a group of men. A few hours later, the woman left the party with them and went back to one of the men's apartments in Beverly Hills. According to investigators, while at the apartment, Christy and Hilda were given drugs, including GHB and fentanyl. Both women later overdosed. Christy Giles was already dead by the time she arrived at the hospital. Police later told her family that two men dropped her off wearing a hat, mask, and a hoodie. They didn't ask for help. They didn't go inside. Hospital staff reported that a black Toyota Prius with no license plates pulled up to the emergency entrance, left Christy on the curb, and drove away. She was taken inside at the Southern California Medical Center, a completely different hospital than where Hilda would later be brought. The man at the center of the case was identified as Hollywood producer David Brian Pierce. Before the 2022 charges connected to Christy Giles and Hilda Cabrales, Pierce had already been accused in multiple sexual assault charges. Prosecutors said 7 different victims came forward with allegations spanning more than a decade, from 2007 to 2020. A jury later found Pierce guilty on those charges, including multiple counts of forcible rape, sexual assault involving force, assault of an unconscious person, and sodomy by force, according to ABC7. Christy Giles died from a mixture of cocaine, fentanyl, ketamine, GHB, which is a drug commonly known as a date rape drug, and Hilda suffered multiple organ failures. Cocaine, ecstasy, and other unknown substances were found in her system. She remained on life support for days, but her family made the decision to take her off life support on November 24, 2021, just a day before her 27th birthday. David Pierce was charged with 2 counts of murder related to the rape and death of Christy Giles and Hilda Marcela Cabrales. He was also charged with 7 counts of sexual assault involving 7 different women, with those charges dating back as far as 2007. Another man, Brent Osborne, was charged with 2 counts of accessory to murder after the fact. On November 25, 2022, outside of court, he told 48 Hours, quote, "I have no comment. I am innocent." This is Aokigahara, Jukai, often just called Jukai, a dense forest that sits at the base of Mount Fuji in Japan. And depending on who you ask, it's either one of the most peaceful places in the country or one of the heaviest. The nickname most people know it by came much later, the Suicide Forest. Aokigahara itself is relatively young in geological terms. The forest grew on hardened lava after Mount Fuji erupted in the year 864. That lava cooled into this rough, porous rock, and over time, trees took root, twisting around it, growing closer together, creating a canopy so thick that sunlight barely reaches the ground. And one of the stranger things about it is the sound, or the lack of it. The lava beneath the forest absorbs noise. Footsteps don't echo the way you expect. Wind doesn't move through the trees the same way. People describe it as unnaturally quiet. Not peaceful quiet, but isolating quiet. Like you're alone even when you're not. That physical silence is part of why the forest feels so unsettling. It's also part of why some people feel drawn to it. And there are practical issues too. Campuses don't always behave normally in Aokigahara. The lava rock contains iron, and if you place a magnetic campus directly on the ground, the needle can point away from north. It's not supernatural, it's geology. But that detail alone helped build the forest's reputation over time. People really can get turned around in there, especially if they leave the trails. For centuries, Akigahara was just a forest, a dangerous one, sure, dense, easy to get lost in, but not infamous. The darker associations came later. There are old folklores tied to the forest like this in Japan, especially stories involving yurei, which are spirits formed by unresolved grief or violent death. And there's the concept of ubaste, the idea that during times of famine, elderly or sick family members were abandoned in remote places. Historians debate how literal those stories are, but culturally, the idea of forests as places where suffering is hidden took root long ago. Still, Akigahara wasn't widely associated with suicide until the 20th century. That shift really begins in the 1960s. In 1961, a novel called Tower of Waves by Seisho Matsumoto was published, and in it, a couple goes into Akigahara to die together. The forest is portrayed as quiet, final, and removed from the world, and after that, something changed. By the late 1960s and into the 1970s, Akigahara became appearing in media discussions around suicide. Word spread, and slowly the forest became known first within Japan and eventually internationally as a place where people went intentionally. By the early 2000s, the numbers forced authorities to respond. In 2003 alone, 105 bodies were found in the forest, higher than the previous record of 78 the year before. In 2010, police recorded more than 200 suicide attempts, with 54 confirmed deaths. Officials noticed patterns too. Attempts often increase in March, the end of the fiscal year in Japan, a time associated with job changes, financial pressure, and social stress. For years, the most common methods were hanging or drug overdose. Authorities eventually stopped publicly releasing annual body counts, but because they feared the publicity was making it worse. By that point, Akigahara had picked up its English nickname, the Suicide Forest, and that label stuck. Today, if you enter certain trails, the first thing you see isn't forest, it's the big signs. They say things like, your life is precious, think of your family, you're not alone. They include phone numbers for suicide prevention organizations. What people don't realize is that Akigahara is also a popular hiking destination. There are lava caves nearby, ice caves, clearly marked paths, family visits, tourists take photos. Over the years, Japan authorities and mental health organizations have worked to reduce suicide connected to the forest by eliminating media coverage, increasing patrols, and placing prevention signs at the trail entrances. National suicide rates in Japan have declined significantly since their peak in the early 2000s, showing that prevention and open conversations do make a difference. Today, Akigahara remains a public forest and a popular hiking area, but it's also monitored with care. Volunteers continue to walk the trails, trying to recognize people in distress and offer help. The focus has shifted from the forest itself and toward mental health awareness, intervention, and support. If this episode brought up difficult feelings for you, resources are available. Reaching out for help is not a failure, and you don't have to carry things alone.